this is super important doing this at this point, because this is the problem I have with so many games out there, you know. And Crisis 1 Remastered just hit the nail on the head. Like, it is impossible to make a game look bad in the modern day and age. It is... What changed? Bruh. In modern day and age, our PCs are way too powerful as to have bad graphics. You know, the baseline for PCs is way too it's way too high up there. Like, my favorite graphics card of all times are the 750 Ti and the 1060 Mini that I have in my PC that is actually doing the encoding work right now. And man, the 750 got so much flack in my friend circle and the extended friend circle. But when I learned about how do you use your VRAM, yeah, you know, how do you even know what sort of resolution you should run, because that here is not telling you the resolution that your graphics card can run. This is yeah, it can run it, but should it run at that resolution? And the calculation you can easily do is you take height times width times 32 for the color bitrate, and then you have your bits. So then we need to make bits into bytes. That is 8, parting it by 8 bits, bytes. Why do I think I have to go through 16? Now this is freeboard anyways, on the trust me bro basis, you know. So you divide it by 8 to make it into byte. You go through 1024 to make it into kilobits. You do that again, parting it through, dividing it through 1024 to get it into megabytes. And you do it again to get it into gigabytes. And then you have the number of gigabytes your VRAM should have for for one frame of 1920 to 1080. And then you want 60 frames, right? So that number that you have times 60. And then you have the gigabyte number for the 60 frames that your VRAM should have. That is the baseline, how you know how much VRAM you actually need. Someone by the name of Folding Ideas once had this video about virtual reality, and he calculated that in order to make a screen and to produce a screen powerful enough to actually display reality at its fullest, we would need 19,000 by 19,000, something like that. Because Well, you probably have your monitor right in front of you, and just imagine how many monitors you need to place besides each other, on top of each other, to fill your your view field. Then you should have an approximate number of how much resolution you need. Then you do that same with VRAM, and then you know that is the VRAM we approximately need, and then the processing power behind it. And I think the modern 3000er series is actually at that place, where one of the 80 or 90 series caliber, should I say, is actually capable of rendering that in real time without much of a struggle. But then we had that data mining, that crypto mining stuff, and suddenly the 32 gigabytes and more RAM at those high-end graphics cards had to be cut down to throw in a stick into the machinery of what is known as crypto mining. But yeah, that should give you the idea why limiting your frames inside of games can actually help you improve the graphical density of a picture. But I was actually talking about the 750, especially the 750 Ti, which only had 2 gigabytes of RAM. So all of the games of that graphics card should have been on 720 quality. If you try to play a game with higher resolution, you were actively crippling your graphics card. And then the 1060, man, the 1060 is one hell of a beast of a graphics card. Even its encoding work today is massive. Sure, I could see how the 2070 is better in using the bitrate. Like when I play Horizon and Dying Light 2, there's a lot of clutter, a lot of suddenly blurriness, and the 2070 is way better in not making it as blurry, you know. Bitrate can compensate for those action intensive or suddenly it's edge intensive stuff. Man, here's it really where my lack of English vocabulary or English uprising is coming into place, because it's the reason why I wanna say edgy is because I see it the most often in grass in video games. You know, you move your camera and suddenly the grass is a sponge. Same with foliage. And the first streamer I've noticed that did not have that trouble at all was Fuglet, Fugglet, and he never had that problem. Even so, his friends would with time get the same rigs as him, the same streaming PC as him, but his entirety of the screen would always be way cleaner. Even so, as Acolyte and Stone Mountain were supposed to have the same settings as him. don't know till today why that is, because I didn't want to bother him too much about it. But yeah. But when I upgraded to the wait, what did I have first? Right, I went for the better graphics card first, since I always know that when I plug in a graphics card, then that graphics card is gonna go with me for 2 or 3 rigs right after another. So when I got the 1070 on my FX 6300, yeah, I mean, that was a beast. That was a processor that was made for really logical stuff, like server work, not really desktop stuff. But so it was lacking behind Intel cores right off the start, but that it was lacking was supposed to be catch up able through overclocking. So I invested some time to get also a board for overclocking. And man, that thing, you could shoot that thing up to 5.2 gigahertz. I saw. I only got mine to 4.5. 4.6 if it's supposed to be a little bit unstable. But then I noticed that the energy converters on the board were melting, so I calibrated that thing back to 4.2. Since suddenly the voltage for after 4.1, 4.2 would be doubled and tripled for the same amount of power. Yeah, I needed a way lower voltage for 4.1, 4.2. But that's also why I know that a processor needs 4.2 gigahertz. That is the doorway, the threshold where you suddenly notice that all of your games run way smoother. What else? Yeah, then this 1070 allowed me to suddenly play everything on high settings. That's why I could instantly tell that all the graphics here do not look better than high. There's no real improvement for the stress that is demanded from my rig. Like my graphics card is edging between 85 to 78 to 85% when I have it on extreme, but when I play it on high, then suddenly we are down to the 60s, which would allow me to again stream from my graphics card for this game instead of from my processor. Brown and the 5K line, the 5600, it's so hard to knock the CPU under 60 frames. It's legit so freaking hard. A different part of my computer has to actively be slowing down that CPU. There's nothing that can slow down that CPU for real. And so we really back into to what I said at the start. It's so hard for a game these days to fully utilize a high-end PC. We have reached a point where it's almost impossible. where legit games like Warzone have to use extremely open, bad encoded code. We can brute force so much bad code with these high-end components that it can become acceptable to use bad coding, and that is what I'm fearful of in the future. Bad habits developing through sheer brute force of we can just do it. But this packaging coding that is missing or will be missed, is that what will like it's prepping the meal for the day, you know? It's putting the milk to the cereal. It's knowing the timing of how long the cereal should be in the milk before it becomes too soft. And I'm one of the disgusting people that grew up with completely soaked through cereal and thinks that is normal. But I've met way more people that want the cereal to be a little bit more crunchy. But I personally do not like crunchy. So, yeah. And later on, if you just simply think about how much space, how many petabytes on data in a day gets produced from Twitch or YouTube, uploaded, re-uploaded, side-loaded, and then multiplied over many servers per region, to make it serviceable, to get the data accessible within seconds or even milliseconds. How much junk data gets produced, and encoding, carefully coding everything, is what keeps that chunk from being as small as it is right now. Of course we could just brute force it with more space and stuff, but man, those server clusters are already so huge. They are unimaginably huge. You actually have to work there in order to get the correct numbers and stuff. Man. Anyways, that's enough from that.